My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Our Gospel today is taken from the book of Mark, chapter 8, and it is the story of the blind man who was cured and could eventually see everything clearly. It is a rather unique miracle of Jesus Christ. It is a peculiar miracle. And so Mark says that Jesus and his disciples came to Bethsaida, and some people brought to him a blind man whom they begged him to touch. Bethsaida happens to be a village slightly northeast to the Sea of Galilee. Jesus, I am moved by how you have traveled. You travel to the north, you travel to the south, you travel east, west, all in an effort to take care of souls. Certainly, it wasn't easy traveling in your time. And so, Jesus, I want this to be a lesson for me, not to be tied down to my comfort, but rather to, like you, seek souls. And this is also what I see in the friends of this blind man. They brought him to you. They were concerned for their friend. Jesus, may I be concerned about my friends' souls. They also begged you to touch him. I also want to beg you to touch my friends, to touch my family. Mark goes on to say that he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. Jesus, take me by the hand and lead me where you want me to go. Take by the hand my friends and lead them where they have to go. Now, what follows is what makes it very interesting. Because Mark says that then, putting spittle on his eyes and laying his hands on him, he asked, "Can you see anything?" Jesus, from the perspective of a modern reader, the use of spittle is a little disconcerting, but it reminds me of the sacramental quality of your signs, of your miracles, Jesus. It in fact sheds light on how the sacraments work, with those external signs that signify that inner grace. But what strikes me perhaps even more is the fact that this healing doesn't take place immediately. And Mark goes on to say that the man who was beginning to see replied, "I can see people, they look like trees to me, but they are walking about." And so, Jesus, you sort of repeat the sign. And so we read, then he laid his hands on the man's eyes again, and he saw clearly. He was cured, and he could see everything plainly and distinctly. Speaking of peculiarities, Jesus, an interesting question comes to mind, which is, how did this man know how trees look like since he was blind? And part of the musings in my prayer, Jesus, is that this man, maybe he was not born blind. He became blind later on in his life. And it makes me think that, yes, at times I have lost sight gradually because of bad decisions I've made, ultimately because of sin. And so, Jesus, I ask you that I may have that humility, that should I have the misfortune of going blind, to let myself be touched by you, and especially through the sacraments, through your sacraments, so that you may restore me back to seeing clearly, and that I may have that patience of letting you work in me and letting you work through me, so that you can bring that same healing to my friends, to my family, to my fellow classmates, to my workmates. On February 21st, 2011, a man by the name of Dr. Bernard Nathanson died in New York City after a long battle with cancer, and in the company of his loving and talented wife, Christine. Brought up in a Jewish family, he did not have a good relationship with his father, and eventually he became an atheist. An ambitious man and a gifted mind, he went on to study medicine, and he qualified as an obstetrician gynecologist and was licensed to practice medicine in New York State in 1952. Caught up in selfishness, he had a child out of wedlock with a girl he met while studying in the university in Canada. He was only 19 years old, and he told his father about it, thinking that his father will take care of everything. His father, who was also a qualified obstetrician gynecologist, answered by sending him a letter in which he enclosed 5 Canadian $100 bills, and in which he advised him to do one of two things. Either he finds an abortionist in Catholic Montreal to do the abortion, or that he travels back to the US and get married. He chose the former. A few years later, something similar happened with a second woman, and this time round he performed the abortion on his own child. He was plunged into the dark world of abortion, and years later he will say that he was personally responsible for 75,000 abortions. He went on to become one of the founders of an association that will repeal the abortion laws in the US. His ambition and his selfishness had left him blind, just like the blind man in the Gospel. His sight, however, will be restored, just like the man in the Gospel. In other words, slowly and eventually he will see with clarity the truth about human life. He went ahead with his studies of embryology and the evidence from emerging technologies to monitor and examine fetal development led Dr. Nathanson to question the morality of voluntarily interrupting pregnancy, and this led him to rejecting abortion procedures from his own clinical practice altogether, and eventually to become involved in pro-life activities. Like the blind man who saw men who look like trees, Dr. Nathanson wrestled with the question of the humanity and the dignity of the fetus that he could obviously and so clearly see using the technology available then. In his autobiography titled The Hand of God, A Journey from Death to Life by the abortion doctor who changed his mind, he writes, "For the first time, we could really see the human fetus, measure it, observe it, watch it, and indeed bond with it and love it." And then he will go on to say, "I began to do that." The gradual healing of his spiritual blindness took time, some years. He performed his last procedure in the late 1978 or early 1979, and he went on to produce a famous documentary called The Silent Scream that is available on YouTube and that was released in 1985. He went on to become an influential writer, a speaker, and a filmmaker, and was supported by the witness and love and prayer of other pro-life supporters that eventually led him towards God. Weighed down by the guilt of all that he had done in terms of taking life, many lives through abortion, he found total healing in Christ and his church. And so in 1996, Dr. Nathanson was received into the Catholic Church, and he received the sacraments of baptism, of confirmation, and of First Holy Communion. When he was asked why he converted to the Roman Catholic Church, he stated that no religion matches the special rule for forgiveness that is afforded by the Catholic Church. Jesus, just like the blind man, you restored the sight, the clarity to Dr. Bernard Nathanson. May the example of the blind man and of Dr. Nathanson lead me to realize that you are the only one who can restore my sight when I go blind through sin. May I trust you like these two men by holding your hand and letting you lead me, to let you touch me with your sacraments and with patience and with faith. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into practice. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.